Welcome back to Helen Kellen Productions, everybody. I'm Joel Kellen, and today is my birthday, and actually it's my golden birthday. So today I decided to do something new and rank all my favorite movies from every year that I've been on this earth. So I'm just gonna say right now, this is my own personal list of what I thought were my favorite movies for each year that I've been alive. So let's get to it. Year 1999, The Sixth Sense. I remember seeing this one as it was several years back. It was during Halloween. So I walked into there like not knowing what the twist was or anything, and when I got to the end, like my mind was blown by the fact that the character at the end of it, Bruce Willis, was a ghost the whole time. And since then, I've watched it a couple times again, and I've picked up on all those little details on that pointed to him being dead the entire movie. It was a great movie. Probably the best M. Night Shyamalan movie, in my opinion, but I haven't seen a lot of Shyamalan movies lately. Bruce Willis did a great job as the lead role. So did Haley Joel Osment. But year 1999, The Sixth Sense. Year 2020, Remember the Titans. I saw the film during high school. It was during one of my writing classes, and we were supposed to discuss the themes about it, like racial prejudice and all that. And all I really got out of it, at least now that I'm thinking of it these days, is that it's kind of refreshing having a film like that like weaves its political messaging in well with the story. Because a lot of films these days, whenever they have like a political message or an agenda, they just like cram it into your face, to the point where it's just ham-fisted and clunky. But it was nice that the theme stuck with the story. They blended it in well, and it was just a great movie all around. Denzel Washington was great. The guy who played the coach opposite of him, he did a great job. The two lead football players, they also did a great job, like showing their own character growth from becoming from disliking one another to becoming friends while on the football field. So year 2000, Remember the Titans. Year 2001, Black Hawk Down. And this one was a great film. I really liked this film. It kind of struck a chord with me. Originally, I first saw this movie way back in middle school. We ended up having our parents sign a waiver, being that the movie was rated R. And thankfully, my parents let us see the film, because it was really great all around. In my opinion, it really captured like the emotions of the characters during war. It's kind of funny because the first time I saw it was in the gymnasium, and it was so dark that I had no idea what was going on. So the first time I saw it, I didn't even know what was happening until I saw the film years later, when I was over at a relative's house, and that was just playing on TV. But all in all, it was a great film. It was a really good war movie. 2002, We Were Soldiers. This is another war film. This one is by Mel Gibson. I don't usually watch a lot of Mel Gibson films. I kind of liken it similar to Black Hawk Down, in which it kind of tries to get into like the soldiers' minds about like what they're doing and why they're fighting. But I'll admit there were a couple scenes where I laughed a little bit harder when I probably shouldn't have, especially with the character who was, like, as Mel Gibson's character said, was just trying to get medals. But overall, it was a great film that showcased the Vietnam War, in my opinion, in a similar way that Saving Private Ryan showcased World War II and D-Day. So year 2002, we were soldiers. Year 2003, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. This movie has always stuck with me. Apparently the first time I watched it was when another one of my relatives just played it for me and my cousins when I was just 3 years old. I don't even remember it that much, but I ended up seeing it again years later when I think I was 8 or 9. I always liked the character of Captain Jack Sparrow. In fact, I actually have my own picture of myself when I'm 6, like posing with a Jack Sparrow actor at Disney World. I always liked the characters. Barbossa was a fantastic villain. Even though like they brought him back again and again for each film, he was always like the OG villain of the series, and that was one of the things that made the original so damn great. Year 2004, Saw. Now this movie is one of my favorite horror movies, actually. In my opinion, it's the best one in the franchise, mostly because it kind of plays sort of like M. Night Shyamalan with the twist, where you don't get it until the end, but then it goes back and shows all these little bits and details that that if you picked it up during the movie, you would know what who the main villain of the movie and the series was going to be. But Carrie Elwes did a great job as Lawrence Gordon, literally just sitting in a bathroom, chained to the toilet, just yelling at the other guy, Adam, while they're trying to figure out just who the heck just stuck them in there. And they have to play this game where Lawrence has to kill Adam and Adam has to escape. But it was a great horror film altogether. It's one of the horror movies that really made me appreciate the genre in general. And it really is more than just like torture porn gore fest, or at least it was like that for the first one. Year 2005, Revenge of the Sith. I don't care what anybody says, I thoroughly enjoyed the prequel films. But Revenge of the Sith was the best one, hands down. That one just goes without any argument. The characters were alright, I will be honest, even though the dialogue felt a little bit clunky. I think Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, and Natalie Portman, they at least tried their best with what they had. Same with Samuel Jackson, same with Ian McDermott. The fight scenes obviously were spectacular, especially that last one between Anakin and Obi-Wan. The transformation from Skywalker to Vader was fantastic in the way it was executed, and it was really a perfect way to cap off the series. Like, way to go out of the franchise with a bang. That was until Disney got the rights to it and made the sequel trilogy. 2006, 300. It was just a beautifully shot movie. The villain in Xerxes, he didn't do much, but he did feel like he had like a commanding presence, or at least to me it felt like that. Gerald Butler, he did a pretty good job as the lead, especially with the "This is Sparta" line. But other than that, not much to say. 2007, No Country for Old Men. When I saw No Country for Old Men the first time, I thought it was fantastic. The villain of Javier Bardem was pretty good. The whole messaging about him being like an exterior force that the sheriff, played by Tommy Lee Jones, just can't keep up with. That was pretty cool. Josh Brolin's character, in that he actually barely ever meets either Tommy Lee Jones or Javier Bardem. That was played off well, even when technically there was no showdown at the end of the film. Even with Javier Bardem and Josh Brolin's wife in the film, they never actually show what happens to her, so it's left up into interpretation about what did happen. Coming out 2008 is The Dark Knight. In my opinion, The Dark Knight helped pave the way for like Man of Steel and the DCEU, even though it's not doing so well right now. And in my opinion, it also paved the way for films like Joker to come out. Because even though it was rated PG-13, Christopher Nolan, he pushed the envelope really hard to show like tons of violence in the film, to show just how dark and gritty it can be in Gotham City, especially with the character of the Joker, and how he goes into those stories about how he got his scars. And the character of the Joker himself was fascinating. I read all these different things about how like Heath Ledger would lock himself in a room for hours on end, possibly even days, because he was really that deep into the method acting. Christian Bale, he did all right as well. The rest of the characters were pretty good. Like, Gordon was great. Rachel was she was okay. Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent was all right, and his transformation into Two-Face was, in my opinion, it was a little bit believable, because they did mention a few times early in the film about how he had that nickname of Harvey Two-Face, and then like later they showed him have like violent tendencies with that one character Schiff, when he nearly blew his head off before he was stopped by Batman. But then that all comes to a head when half of his face gets burned off like in the comics, and then he just fully becomes Two-Face. But aside from that, the story was also pretty good about how he was, about how Batman has to like stop the Joker, but the Joker just wants to cause chaos in Gotham like usual, and just prove that like deep down everyone is as ugly as him, similar to his one bad day speech way back during the Killing Joke comics. So it was nice to see like a really dark and gritty interpretation of both of those characters on the big screen. 2009, Public Enemies. This was another one of those movies starring Johnny Depp. I watched this around the time where like I was a huge fan of Johnny Depp coming off of Pirates of the Caribbean. But aside from Johnny, the other actors did pretty well as well. Like Christian Bale as the like main guy who's hunting him. Marianne Cotillard, who was Depp's girlfriend in the film. And there's not much there's not much I can really remember from the film. I just do know that I did like it a lot. So 2009, Public Enemies. 2010, Toy Story 3. So originally I watched the first two Toy Stories back to back when I was 4 or 5, and I remember loving the crap out of both of them. I especially liked the character of Buzz Lightyear. Unfortunately, I never got the chance to see it in the theaters. Instead, I ended up seeing it on DVD, I think a full year later, unfortunately. But it was pretty good, and in a way, I went a more darker route than the first two movies, especially towards the end with the trash compactor scene. The villain of Lotso was also pretty believable in that, in a way, he had like a one bad day, kind of like the Joker, where he and his friends were lost on the playground, but when he returned to his owner's house, he found out that she had gotten like a new Lotso, and that just messed with his head to the point where he became like a dictator at the daycare that he resided in. But aside from that, it was really nice seeing all the original actors come back, like Tom Hanks as Woody and Tim Allen as Buzz were great as always. All the other toys, save for, I believe, the person who voiced Slinky came back because the actor for Slinky had died sometime prior, which was a shame, but the person that they had who replaced him did his job well. Even the actor who originally played as Andy for the first two movies, he came back to voice like a much older Andy, like who was going off to college. But other than that, it was a great film. It really brought back some nostalgia all the way back from watching the first two films. 2011, Priest. It was a pretty good movie. It's basically about how, like, in the near future, the government has become sort of like a 1984-esque city or something like that. That's governed by incredibly religious priests, and one of them. He has to save his niece, who was kidnapped by a horde of vampires who are trying to get back into the city and destroy it. The film was pretty good. It was I thought the cinematography was great. There were some scenes that I thought could have been better, mainly the fight scenes. One of the twists in particular comes out of nowhere and feels a little bit forced, which kind of made it feel like it was just there to provide a little bit of conflict. Like if you took it out, you probably would have had the exact same movie. But Paul Bettany does pretty good as the main character. This is prior to him becoming Vision in the MCU. Karl Urban does a great job as the main vampire. I believe his name was just Black Hat. Even like his voice, you could hear that gruffness that like made you think that the movie as a whole, with the futuristic priests in governing the world setting, as well as Karl Urban being in it, it all just felt like a precursor to when Karl Urban would eventually don the helmet and badge of Judge Dredd. And that leads us into my favorite 2012 movie, Dredd. So Karl Urban did great as Dredd. Olivia Thirlby, I believe her name was, she did great as the side judge Anderson, who eventually gets her own comic series in the 2000 AD universe. The villain, Mama, played by Lena Headey, she was a pretty great villain, even though she never appeared in the comics before. The other characters did a decent job. The Chief Judge, who I'm still thinking is supposed to be a version of Chief Judge Silver from the comics, she did okay for what little time she had on screen. The Mama Clan techie, he really sold his role as like being scared of Mama. It's funny because people always recognize him as Bill Weasley from the Harry Potter movies, or most recently Admiral Hux from the Star Wars sequels, but every time I see him, I just point to him and think, hey, that guy was the techie. And then the last like main character was this one Mama henchman that Dredd and Anderson took captive for most of the film. I can't even remember what his name was in the movie, but the actor who played as him, I ended up recognizing him from Remember the Titans. Like, he was the same actor. So, 2012, Dredd. 2013, Olympus Has Fallen. I honestly didn't know what to expect from the film, because I originally remembered seeing promos for White House Down at around the same time, and I thought that those two movies were connected, even though like they're both about how like terrorists taking over the White House and all that. But I was pleasantly surprised by Olympus Has Fallen. So the film stars like Gerard Butler, Morgan Freeman, and Aaron Eckhart as like the main cast. Gerard Butler does a great job. He does a great job as a Secret Service agent, though, for most of the film, and how he's trying to get back into the White House after it was taken over by terrorists and save the president, played by Aaron Eckhart, as well as the president's son, after the president blamed him for the death of the First Lady a few years prior to the events. But overall, it's a great action film. The characters were done pretty good. I do wish that the villain might have been a little bit more intimidating, because like I don't even remember the villain's name. But overall, it was a solid action film. So much that I ended up watching its sequel, London Has Fallen, and I also ended up seeing the threequel, Angel Has Fallen, when it arrived in theaters a couple years ago. Year 2014, John Wick. Unfortunately, I never got to see this one in theaters. In fact, I didn't see it for a few years until I ended up getting it on DVD and Blu-ray. And my dad and I ended up watching it together, and we both loved the film. Keanu Reeves does a fantastic job in the film. Ian McShane is great. The bad guys, they do a pretty good job, especially Vigo, despite that ending fight where it's essentially like a middle-aged man fighting an old Russian guy, which clearly Wick shouldn't have had a problem with. At least that's how I saw it. But the film was pretty good. It was one of the best action movies I've seen ever. In fact, I actually had to rewatch the film before I put it on this list, because I very nearly put Captain America: The Winter Soldier on there. But when I resaw John Wick, I realized, wow, I like this movie better. So, 2014, John Wick. Year 2015, The Martian. So I was originally also going to put like Avengers Age of Ultron on here or something like that. But then I thought back to one of the films that I saw on the ride home from a high school trip to Disneyland. And that movie in question was The Martian. And I actually kind of liked it better, mostly because even though there were like other supporting characters at different scenes, the whole film was basically one person, Matt Damon, being like just stuck on Mars and more or less talking to himself. And I believe in the film he spent over a year on that planet just by himself, and it just made me really feel bad for him the whole way through. but I think it really showed his acting. Like it really let his acting skills come out to basically just be in a room with himself and do all those things that he did in the film. So 2015, The Martian. 2016, Deadpool. They finally did Wade Wilson right. After screwing him up in X-Men Origins Wolverine, they finally gave Ryan Reynolds another chance to don the red mask and katanas, and he kicked butt doing it. This movie was a very faithful adaptation of the character in the comics. Thankfully, they also decided to keep him rated R, and they showed that you can do R-rated superhero movies as long as they are done right. But there was great action in it. The fight scenes were great. My only real gripe about it is the villain, Ajax, who to me wasn't all that threatening. And actually, I believe that Deadpool also said that in the film too. Aside from laughing that he got his villain name off of a soap bottle. But other than that, it was a great action comedy superhero flick. It's a great movie to watch, just if you're bored on a Friday night and you want to have a good laugh. So 2016, Deadpool. And that actually also leads us into 2017 with Logan. This one was a very different X-Men film where Logan is now an old man. He barely pops his claws. Charles Xavier is extremely old in the film, and whoever did the makeup in it really made it show. And I can't quite remember, but I think Professor X was also dying in the film. I know that they were saying that Logan had adamantium poisoning in the movie, but I think that Charles Xavier was also dying in the film. But the film was really good. Hugh Jackman gave a 100% performance. So did Patrick Stewart. Even the actress who played as Lara did a great job just playing basically Logan's daughter. Overall, the film was great. There wasn't that much action in it, where Wolverine was just popping his claws and just slashing everybody up. But when the scenes did happen, they were a treat to see, especially with the R rating, because they finally allowed Wolverine to hack off limbs, stab his claws through people's heads, and it was overall just a really great film, especially when I got to see it in theaters. 2018, Avengers Infinity War. Honestly, was there really any doubt that this would be my favorite movie of 2018? Josh Brolin played Thanos terrifically, even though they did stray away from the comics on why he wants to eliminate half of the universe. In the comics, the whole comic arc actually starts with him snapping the half of the universe away, and all that is just to please Lady Death. Whereas in here, he does it because he recognizes that the universe's resources, they're not enough. And so he, in his own twisted way, he's saving the universe from eventual extinction. And I always thought that was a really interesting change to his character from the comics. But as always, all the big heavy hitter actors like Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Chris Hemsworth, even Mark Ruffalo and Chris Pratt, they all play their roles terrifically, and even a few minor characters in the larger MCU, like Tom Holland and the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy, they also do really great. There's really not one character, in my opinion, that did a poor job in the entire film. It was a great movie. There's just not much that I can say about that hasn't already been said. So 2018, Avengers Infinity War. My favorite film of 2019 was 1917. But I actually ended up going back and forth between that and Joker. But I ended up choosing 1917 over Joker because at least for me, it's not something that I've ever seen before. Like, just the way they shot it, where the entire movie looked like it was just one long take. They did that. They shot it beautifully there. There were a few hidden cuts that I noticed. Like, really, the most obvious one was when the main character got shot and the screen went black for a good 30 or so seconds. But then, like, other hidden cuts are when the camera zooms in on something, or when it pans down to not show somebody's face. And the characters are done beautifully. I can't even remember the characters' names. No, sorry. The main character, Schofield. He was played great. Where basically 3/4 of the movie it's just him. He's the character that we follow. He did have a partner earlier in the film, but after he got killed by an enemy soldier, we really just followed Schofield around the entire time. And aside from that, the music pretty much made the film as well, especially 1600 Men when it starts playing and Schofield just starts running across the battlefield. It was a great film overall. It was a real treat to see it in theaters with my family. So 2019, 1917, 2020. It was actually slightly a bit tough to narrow down my picks, but I ended up going with Sonic the Hedgehog because it was just a great family movie. Even though I saw it by myself, James Marsden, he did all right as his character. I can't remember his main name, but Sonic called him Donut Lord in the film. He did pretty good as like the cop character alongside the animated Sonic. Thankfully, the studios actually listened to the fans and they fixed Sonic's design before the film was released. Jim Carrey as the villain, he did great as Dr. Robotnik. I'm really excited for the sequel whenever it comes out, especially since they're bringing in Tails. 2020, Sonic the Hedgehog. And finally, 2021, The Little Things. Now, The Little Things was the first movie I saw this year. It was like the first new movie that I saw in theaters, because every other one that I saw for the last couple months were all films that came out 20 or 30 years ago. But The Little Things was really great. It starred Denzel Washington, Jared Leto, Rami Malek. It was like a detective thriller that took place in the 90s, where they were trying to... Denzel Washington and Rami Malek, they were trying to hunt down this serial killer, and they kept suspecting Jared Leto as the killer. And throughout the entire time, Jared Leto gave off this really creepy, disturbing performance where you were always guessing, like, did he actually commit the murders that they presented in the film? Or did he not or did he not actually kill those people? And the whole film had you guessing whether or not he actually did it. And I really liked everyone's performances, especially Jared Leto's. Like I said in my review way back earlier this year, one of the things that stuck out to me was like, where was Jared Leto's performance for this? Like, where was that performance when he was the Joker back during Suicide Squad? And So all in all, it was just a great film, and that's what made it my number one spot for the year 2021. So that was my favorite films for every year that I've been alive so far. What do you guys think? You like them? You hate them? What are your favorite films per year? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to watch my other video of favorite video games for every year I've been alive, because I filmed those back to back. Anyway, you guys have a nice day, and catch you guys later.